Hi, welcome again. Today I'm going to talk about learning outcome, learning domain, and also assessment on our learning. This is to ensure that there are some form of quality assurance in our learning system, especially the formal learning. And this is the overview of today's session. I will talk about quality in education, particularly in context of the Malaysian Qualification Framework, MQF. And I will talk about the learning outcome and the model of the learning outcome that we have, and also in terms of the domain area of our learning, which is based on Bloom Taxonomy. So I will share with you the taxonomy later on. And another important aspect is the constructive alignment, and it's important between, the learning outcome, the learning process, and also the assessment on learning. Lastly, I would provide a summary and also some final thoughts for this session. This is the overview of Malaysian Qualification Framework, where we have our first MQF framework devised in 2007, which is the first edition. And I was informed that there is a second edition in 2017 that is on the version 2 for MQF. The purpose of having this framework is to devise more responsive framework to ensure better, higher quality of our education system, which is relevant to the post-secondary education. It is a declaration of Malaysia education system qualification, and it's to ensure the quality of the education. And this framework is approved under Malaysian Qualification Agency Act 2007. And it is aimed to set qualification standards for all qualifications in the higher education and also on training sector. So normally, for institutions such as my institution, Multimedia University, we are using this framework as a guide for our curriculum design and also for the assessment and other part of the guideline. So we will follow according to this framework. And generally, this is the Malaysian qualifications. As you can see, we have a different level or rank in terms of the qualification levels, from certificates up to the PhD by research area. And according to the MQF level as well, and also the graduating credits granted to each of the level. So this is a generic document that you can get from MQA, MQF, and recent time. So there is an emphasis in terms of a lifelong learning aspect, which is the informal learning aspect that MQA also take into consideration for the qualification for these workers, as long as they do have, work experiences, so they are able to proceed in order to get a higher qualification through APEL-C, or accreditation of prior experiential learning. And this is aligned with the development of education trends, and also due to the development of the technology in education, which enable the accreditation of prior experiential learning to be happen. And for MQF, is also based on the agency MQA shall also responsible for the implementation for the national framework to be known as Malaysian Qualification Framework, consisting of qualification, programs, higher education provider based on a set of criteria and also standards, including learning outcome, okay, achieved and the credit based on student academic load. So this is to highlight the importance of the kind of education practice based on outcome-based education that we call it as OBE, in which education supposed to aim at giving students a particular or minimum level of knowledge and ability as the major educational outcomes. Learning outcome are statements of what a learner is expected to know, understand, and or able to demonstrate after the completion of a process of learning. For the learning focused course, so it is important for us to understand about OBE. For this MQF learning outcome domain area, as presented earlier in the previous slide, so there are 8 levels of MQF learning outcome domain area. So these are the domain. Firstly, it is on the area of knowledge, okay, getting to know something, especially in the engineering area or on the creative multimedia area of the study. So the knowledge area is to be the MQF domain area 1. And in terms of the second area, normally it is focusing more in terms of the practical skill, which is aligned with the psychomotor domain, learning domain area as per Bloom Taxonomy. I will talk more on Bloom Taxonomy in the next slide. And another domain, the third domain area is to focus on social skills and the responsibilities. Okay. The next one is on value, attitudes, and professionalism. The fifth area is on communication, leadership, and team skills. The sixth, problem solving and scientific skills. The seventh, information management and lifelong learning skills. And on the eighth, managerial and entrepreneurial skills. So these are the framework of the learning outcome domain area that normally we will try to address in terms of our learning outcome for our program, education program to be mapped to this framework. And for the new second version, version 2.0 of MQF, 5 domain or cluster area of the learning outcome. So there is a minor modification, minor clustering, okay, arrangement of the cluster, which focus on 5 cluster, okay, 5 domain or 5 cluster of the learning outcome, which is the first one is focusing in terms of the knowledge and also the understanding. The cluster 2 is on the cognitive skills, and the cluster 3 mainly focusing on functional work skills such as practical skills, interpersonal and communication skills, digital and numeracy skill, leadership, autonomy and responsibility skill. And cluster 4, personal and entrepreneurial skills. Okay, and then the next cluster, which is a final cluster, cluster 5, is on the ethics and professionalism. So this cluster are able to provide a better coverage of the curriculum design when we plan for the learning outcome for that particular curriculum. And for learning outcome, usually there is a principles, okay, that we base on, and it is based on Bloom Taxonomy. Okay, Bloom Taxonomy, which is a very popular document, and mostly we should, as an educators, as a expert in education, we should be able to know about this Bloom Taxonomy, in which the taxonomy has described about different level or order in terms of the learning achievement or the learning outcome that we intend to design the curriculum in order to reach certain level of outcome. For example, in the area of cognitive learning outcome, which is based on the internal and the internal processes, internal process in terms of our cognition, learners' cognitions level. So there are these levels of outcome that normally we can focus on. The lower level is actually on knowledge and also on comprehension into certain subject matter. And another higher order of the learning outcome related to that subject matter, for example, like internet courses on internet applications. So there will be like some outcome related to the application of it, and then to the analysis of that knowledge, and to the synthesis of the knowledge, and also to the evaluations of that particular knowledge that has been acquired by the students. So these are sometimes very important in order to know how well that learners is able to use the knowledge that they learned, okay, for application of the knowledge in a higher order, rather than focusing in terms of the lower level of the acquisition of that knowledge. The more acquired of that piece of the knowledge, the better that the learners is able to apply their understanding and the skills, the knowledge that they learn into the area of the subject matters that they learn. Second aspect of learning is on affective learning domain. Okay, affective, as the words affect, okay, that we know it is the meaning of feeling or emotions, and also on the attitudes aspect. So these are the domain of learning which is related to the attitudes or the feeling, the commitment aspect, as opposed to the cognitive aspect of learning outcome. It is more in terms of the understanding of the subject matters, the content, the domain, knowledge domain area. Affective is on their commitment in terms of that subject matter, and also their interest, their attitude toward the subject matter. So with that, Bloom has provide a guide on some level in terms of the acquisition of this learning outcome. So these are the levels. So I will not explain in details of each of the levels, and I will be just briefly, okay, explain on that. For example, like receiving and also responding to the knowledge that the learners receive. And if they have higher order higher order level of understanding about that knowledge. So the learner should be able to value, appreciate, appreciate, and also able to organize that knowledge for their own way, okay, application, and also able to exhibit and also display it, demonstrate that knowledge with confidence, okay, with confidence, and able to, apprehend and appreciate that knowledge. So that is on the affective aspect of the learning outcome. On the third aspect of the learning outcome, as you can predict, it is on psychomotor, which is mainly in terms of how we can handle it through the practical aspect, hands-on, or handling certain software tools or certain setup of the experiments in science lesson, for example, and able to use some tools for mathematics calculations. So these are the level, okay, in terms of the learning outcome. Okay, the lower level, of course, is just like imitation, just follow what others do. So that is the very basic level. Manipulation. So learners just be able to handle, the computer software, just on some parts, just manipulate and change here and there. However, when they are able to perform in a greater or higher order level, so the students are able to do some precision design in terms of the software, using the software, and they are also able to articulate in terms of their steps with confidence, of course. Okay, they are able to handle it in precision, and the higher order one is naturalization. Okay, naturalization. So these are the different level or order in terms of the three learning outcome, three domain, okay, of taxonomy domain, which is the cognitive area, affective area, and also on the psychomotor area that normally in learning. So we will be checking through, okay, how well that our students are able to perform in the cognitive aspect, which is more on terms of like knowledge and also the content and comprehension in terms of the subject matter, or how well they appreciate, having the good, the positive attitude towards that subject matter, and also towards learning that particular course. And also the next one would be on the psychomotor, how well the students, the learners are able to handle the software tools used in the course, and also, for example, in conducting the experiments, okay, in the science area, science subject matter. Let's come back to this Bloom taxonomy that I had mentioned. Bloom has written some seminal work on the Bloom taxonomy in 1956, and another version of the books that we also rely on, it's also by Anderson, 2001, that he did some modifications for Bloom taxonomy, and in 2001. So as you can see earlier on, this is on the cognitive domain, particularly on cognitive domain, that the latest development of the cognitive domain and the taxonomy on the Bloom taxonomy. So we are using the year 2001, in which the change is to emphasize more in terms of the verb form. Okay, the verb form in expressing the acquisitions of the cognitive domain area, okay, of learning outcome. This is also in line with the learning theories of behavioralism, okay, in which we focus more in terms of the behavioral or the verbs aspect, okay, in which the learners is able to perform some tasks. For example, like to remember, to acquire certain skill, and even the taxonomy is also explained in the verbs, in the verbs form, okay, such as remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and to create. Okay, to create being the highest level. If one learner, okay, is able to apprehend about the knowledge delivered to them, for example, in the graphic design class, he or she would be able to create a poster which is able to communicate a message, an important message. Okay, so that is the kind of skill set that we want students to be able to execute upon their learning. Okay, for example, like the example that I give in computer graphics class. The next part of this session is to talk about constructive alignment, which is a term that is referred to an approach on curriculum design in which teaching and learning activities are designed to maximize learning, to engage and activate the verbs in the learning outcomes, and the same verbs in assessment tasks too. So this is to ensure that there is a constructive alignment in the design of the learning environment or a design of a course. And the alignment in terms of the learning outcome and the method of teaching and learning, and also not to forget the importance of the alignment towards the form of assessment. So this is what is meant by saying, when we say constructive alignment, it means that is to make sure that the whole system is aligned, okay, accordingly, from the learning activities, the process, the design of the course, in terms of the learning outcome, okay, and the content delivered, everything is all aligned, and towards the end is also aligned to the assessment. So these are the steps of constructive alignment, which is referred to Barbara's slides. And the first step is to identify aims and objectives of module, connected with aims and objectives of the program offered, okay, by the institution. So, for example, like a program in creative multimedia. So that program also has to align, okay, in terms of the learning outcome of every courses, okay, every courses. So there will be some mapping, okay, in terms of the statement of the learning outcome or the objective. Then second step, write learning outcome for the module. Third, develop a teaching and learning strategy to enable students to achieve the learning outcome designed for that particular course, okay, particular course. This is important, okay, so that whatever that that is conducted is also aligned, okay, mapped to the program outcome, the course learning outcome. And also for another part of the course design, which is the assessment, okay, design assessment method to test if learning outcome have been achieved. So there are the questions, or maybe there are assignments given to the learners who can also realize or show the evidence that they are able to achieve the learning outcome that is designed for the particular course. And number 5, modified module contents and assessment according to feedback to ensure that the constructive alignment is fully aligned. Students' feedback or reviewer feedback, course reviewer feedback is also important. So with that, then we are able to implement constructive alignment, and the basic understanding, okay, of this concept is actually to ensure that the assessment or the students, okay, are able to claim that they have completed a course, and they also able to claim that they are able to reach the learning outcome, okay, which is designed by the course. So all in all this is quite important actually in terms of giving a better quality of the course that we offer to our students, okay, to avoid overlaps with other courses. Okay. What's next is this. What is assessment? Okay, a process of collecting, analyzing, and also interpreting information about a student's understanding and or a performance relative to educational goal. So assessment is the process. Is a process to ensure that students are able to perform and also able to be to show some evidence in terms of meeting up, okay, and also reaching, okay, whether they reach the educational goal or not, okay, for the course. So there are 2 aspects of assessment normally, okay. One aspect of it is here, assessment of learning, okay, of learning. The ultimate goal is actually to do a summative assessment towards the end, okay, towards the end, to do a summative assessment at the end of the learning, taking up like 14 weeks, completing the course, and we do a summative assessment, okay, to gauge whether the students are able to perform, whether the student already acquired the skill set or the knowledge required by them after or upon completing the course. So of course, we are in this aspect of the assessment, we will look into grading in terms of their reports, okay, and also very often this assessment is carried out more formally, okay, or in the large scale, more formally through exam or maybe through final coursework, okay, presentation. On another aspect of the assessment, this is another school of thought, okay, that is focusing very much in terms of formative assessment, in which students are to gauge their own strength and their weaknesses, okay, of their ability through feedback. So students are able to know what area of their weaknesses. Students are to understand their own learning and the goals of their learning. So this is an assessment that is able to provide feedback, and learners need that actually in order for them to improve, okay, from time to time. This is the main purpose of education. Hence, assessment for learning is focusing more in terms of formative assessment. as well as, of course, summative assessment towards the end of the course or towards the end of their learning program. So my final thoughts on learning domain, learning outcome, and also learning assessment. So all in all, the quality of the education that offered to learners should be able to meet the applications of the course, or maybe the application of the program, which is able to serve, the needs of the community, of the larger group of the society, of the nation, okay, or of the industry, right? And the students that graduated from the program are able to find good jobs. Okay, they are able to get jobs easily, and for them to earn a living. So nowadays, with the COVID pandemic challenges, okay, and this is a kind of quite a challenge for graduates, young people, to get job. So that is important, okay, in order to gauge whether our program is good or not good. And of course, we also emphasize in terms of the teamwork and also the presentations by the students able to communicate very well, and holistic learning experiences, okay, given to the students. So this is a final thoughts final thoughts that I always have these questions. What about like the outcome in terms of the value system or the students' characteristic, okay, such as resilience, the characteristic of having this social responsibility, or maybe job responsibility, and also on another aspect on environmental awareness and their leadership quality, okay, in completing a program of the higher education, especially during this pandemic time. So how do we judge that our education quality is able to produce an outcome, students or graduates to have these criteria? So together with you and me, let's try to understand further, okay, by giving more deep thoughts on these topics. Thank you.